Let's dive into Coinbase stuff. So, David, I'm going to throw it right back to you. This is a very similar story, just SEC fighting lending platforms. So, what's the latest there?
Yeah, and specifically, what is of interest in the Coinbase case that our news editor Nicholas Day wrote about is that they're making it a public fight, right? They published the Wells letter and their response, and that has shades of what has gone on with XRP and Ripple in the past, and also going all the way back to Kick in 2019 when they started to draw their audience into getting upset at the SEC over the way they were being regulated. And this is a unique thing to crypto because we have these big public buy-ins for all of these platforms and also just technology in general. So the question here is whether this is actually a productive and good way to engage with the SEC to get your fans to yell at them, basically. And I don't know how regulators are going to respond to that. Personally, I'm a little bit skeptical, and I think the XRP case so far shows that there's not necessarily a huge upside to this, but it definitely reflects a different way of going about responding to regulators. Zach?
I think that Ripple thing is very relevant here, and I think just I'm still not over the odd bedfellows of Brian Armstrong and Brad Garlinghouse in opposition to the SEC. I think it's really interesting that Coinbase is adopting that playbook, and I think it's very in keeping with the sort of the crypto ethos, right? These are public networks. This stuff lives on chain for all to see, and for this fight to be aired out publicly, I think is very in keeping with some of the core values of transparency and openness. So it definitely just signals sort of a culture shift, I think, right? This is sort of Silicon Valley playbook going up against
it's Uber to an extent,
suits. It is. It's interesting. And I think to date, I think Coinbase, with a few exceptions, has been pretty keen to court regulatory blessing before going ahead and doing stuff. So it's not like Uber in that respect, which I think was really that sort of move fast and break things approach to municipal livery standards and stuff like that. But it's interesting that this has changed, and Brian Armstrong is on the warpath, and it's going to be interesting to see if it'll work. It didn't work with Kick. Remember that one? Remember the Save Crypto thing?
Mm-hmm.
That didn't work. That did not end up well. So it could just be an embarrassing egg on the face moment that is akin to that as well. But yeah, I'll throw it down to Naomi, please.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting when you had Brian Brooks earlier on the show saying we should not be protected from 4% interest, but then you have Jeremy Allaire of Circle saying, actually, we presume this is a security and we registered as such. I mean, it's very interesting, these different paths that different companies are taking. I think that even if Coinbase is forced to register the thing as a security, I mean, all it's going to do is kick out smaller competition. You are going to have the Circles and the Coinbases of the world who are going to be able to navigate these waters and go through all the payments and regulatory compliance that's necessary. But a lot of the smaller places, they're going to have more trouble. It's going to be a lot more costly for them, or they might be decentralized to a certain degree, and they just won't be able to get those resources. And obviously we've talked about decentralization as being this spectrum. It may be someone who's kind of spearheading a project, but not necessarily getting a whole bunch of money that they can raise as a singular entity working on something. The government might consider that centralized enough to go after them, but they might not actually be centralized enough to raise funds to actually go through with regulatory compliance or have any actual entity that they could register. So it really does put a lot of the different lending platforms out there at a disadvantage. So I do hope that Coinbase, on behalf of the industry, is able to succeed in their battle with the SEC. And it's interesting because Circle has always taken that approach. I remember, I think it was 2019 during the Libra hearings, Jeremy Allaire kind of talking about how, well, maybe we should have custodians. Maybe we should have people taking care of this crypto in this space. And it's sort of a lot of these bigger players alluding to the fact that maybe they should be lent on as these custodians. And I mean, it's a very I really don't like that sort of regulatory environment where you have people testifying and say, you need to have custodians. Also, we'd be great at it. So I'm just kind of skeptical of that sort of stuff. Jeremy Allaire, yeah, we're a security. To their credit, they haven't actually drilled home that point. They haven't been like, this is a security, everyone should be in compliance. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if Coinbase does fight this and where, Circle will stand on something like that. But Jen, I saw your hand go up, so I'll throw it down to you.
Yeah, just really quickly. I mean, the SEC has been so tight-lipped at what's going on behind the scenes, and so Coinbase going public with what's happening and publishing these documents is interesting. And we have to remember they're also a public company. You know, in some way, their investors, their shareholders deserve to have this information, and maybe not on a quarterly report, maybe sooner. And to your point, David, I think there are fans that are going to they're going to push back, but there are also academics and thought leaders and policymakers who are going to see this and be able to form their own thoughts. And I think that sway could be positive, hopefully, but that's all I got. We'll just have to wait and see.
Very, very quickly, one thing about Naomi, since you mentioned USDC, it's worth pointing out that their regulated yield product is only available to large and I think accredited investors. So that is another serious difference to the way this might work if it was regulated.